Welcome to episode 528 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, January 1st, 2026 in the evening. Coming to you from Nomagon, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From North End, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Happy New Year.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Magesa.
Happy New Year.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Crash, Beef Squatch, David P., Jeremy T., Bottle Caps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, May, NY Kiwi, Spine, and Grizzly Bear. And by our patrons of the week, Absacold and The Doctor's Link. You can go to patreon.com/CoinConcede to get perks like a thank you at the top of the show, bonus post-show content, early access to new episodes, and help support the show in the process. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. So, Life and Ladder, I admittedly have not been doing much more than daily quests for Hearthstone, because I guess the best deck is the Demon Hunter, which one is it called? Where you pull things out of your deck?
The no minion one or the cliff dive one?
Yeah. Cliff Dive Demon Hunter. And I don't care for that. So been playing Arena when I can, or just, not worrying about things and playing jank like, Toki Mage without quite so many tech cards. And, that's fine. But mostly I've been just deep in the weeds, making some homebrew content that hopefully I can publish later for Draw Steel, which has a very open license. It's a tabletop role-playing game that's very tactical. I like it a lot, and yeah, I'm like seriously just so focused in on doing this. And it's just like all my free moments, I'm just like, oh man, there's this other thing that I maybe should be working on, but what if I designed like 2 more abilities? I've got, this many left to go. There's so much that you can do at level 1 that I'm like, after a couple of weeks, really more than a couple of weeks of a lot of time spent, just now nearing the end of like having level 1 fully fleshed out. The other levels do not have quite so much stuff. Level 1 is sort of the biggest hurdle in terms of designing a class, or at least in any single level. But yeah, it's taken a while. And then once I've got that all written out, I can, post it in the Discord to be like, okay, fellow homebrewers, tell me what's wrong with this. What can we do to fix it? It's a really, really lovely community over there. But yeah, that's been me. So, yeah, Magesa, how about you?
Well, Hearthstone-wise, I've been playing some. I've been mostly just playing Discover Hunter because I enjoy the deck, and it is doing well for me overall. I managed to get 11x. I came in the 600s and then dropped to maybe 1500, so not too far, then climbed my way back up into the top 1k, and then looked at it last night and was like, I'm tired. It's New Year's Eve. I'm at 950. That's 11x if I don't play. If I do play, I'm definitely messing this up. So I'm just going to not. It doesn't matter that much, but it does make it a little easier to get into Legend to have it. And I was there anyway, so found other things to do. The Discover Hunter is still fun. I did have... I had like a day earlier this week where overall I was winning a lot, but I had 2 13-turn rogue games against rogues that were playing like... I don't even know what this... It's an Ashamane rogue, I guess? What it is?
Yep, it's back. People don't want to play rogue, but don't want to play cycle rogue. And I think Zacho mentioned something about, deja vu
yep.
rogue deck, right? Like, you can't have a deja vu rogue because it doesn't embody an archetype, but it's like, it's the Firak deck. but not quite the same.
But
This
for
happens whenever people get bored and just want to play the cards to feel something. I think that's generally what happens.
Yeah, can
Okay.
confirm.
Well, actually, Proby1 in the chat said, look at the VS report for today, which I had not yet done. Elise Rogue says the VS report is exhibiting a drastic improvement in its performance that is tied to an improvement in its build. People have figured out a better curve that activates Elise while minimizing the number of bad cards. And it is a reliable counter to Hagatha Shaman. That might be why you weren't doing well.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. I mean, calling something Elise Rogue, they may as well just call it like Cards Rogue. Like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we know what else to call it. I mean, it has like, I would probably still call it an Ashamain, even though it's not like necessarily focused on that.
I had thought he said to cut Ashamain, but maybe not. Guess
maybe
not.
That was the in the report from today. He did not cut Ashamain. I don't know what he said in the podcast this week. Sometimes things will change in between the podcast. The one that I saw, they were running Dethrone as their 7. His is not running any 7 because you don't need to, I guess.
Right. And just one scoundrel.
But Dethrone is destroy a minion combo, summon a random 8-cost minion. It worked out for them because they got what's that one called? The 8/8 taunt, elusive, spell burst, get 8 attack and 8 armor.
The druid one, yeah. Like Star or something, yeah.
Oh,
Stargrazer?
This does have a 7.
Yeah.
The Ziliax is the 7.
Oh, the Ziliax is the 7. It just doesn't show up that way. I see. Okay. Yeah, that probably makes more sense. But Stargrazer turned out was pretty good for them. I had trouble getting through that. But what had really been good for them was that they did a Nightmare Fuel and got on 1, they had a Reborn Rangari Scout out.
Oh, yeah, that seems good. That seems real good. Yeah.
When you're a rogue and doing like Deja Vus and another Nightmare Fuel and like discover things from your deck to draw and like Creature of Madness. Yeah, it took me a little while to kill it, and in the meantime, they got a lot of value out of that Rangari Scout.
Wow.
They might have even gotten a second Rangari Scout.
We're just running Mirex now. It's happened.
Yeah. Every day we stray further from God's light. It's just...
So what is Mirex here for?
What do you mean? It's opponent's things.
It's another Elise.
It's like, well, yeah. It's your opponent plays something and you say, I'd like that.
I'd like that. Yeah.
Would you like an Elise? Would you like a Ziliax? Would you like, an 8/8 Murloc? There's all kinds of things. Would you like a Shutter Block? There's all kinds of things that you might want that to be. So,
yeah. And
it's in your hand, so you get all the battle cries. So, yeah, that seems... I might have to play this deck just to purge just to purge like the evil feelings from my brain,
This is kind of like a priest that you like to play.
No, stop. Do not. Do not.
It's just got a different color on the cards.
Deja Vu and Nightmare Fuel are both in
priest
that vein.
Cards, kind of. Yeah.
I It's a good thing I like you both, because otherwise I would storm off this podcast right now for making those kinds of spurious accusations.
Well, how was your couple of weeks?
Well, I was at 1,000 for a while, and then, as you said, Shaman stopped working, and I kept trying more and more ill-advised things to try to climb. I had a little Protoss Mage phase. I had a Control Warrior phase, and I was playing Death Knight against my better judgment, and nothing was working. So I ended up cratering to like 5,000 by the end of the month, and it just is what it is. It's fine. I'll just do my normal 10x climb, and I've gotten used to it at this point. But and I played some Shaman today, though I guess I shouldn't be, because it's tier 3, which, if I kept up a little bit more with the VS report in the past week, I probably would have known that was coming, but it is what it is. But All that is to say that I spent a lot of money on the Steam Winter Sale, and I played a bunch of roguelikes, and that's what I've been doing. I got this game called Megabonk, which is very silly, but it's basically 3D Vampire Survivors. So that's all you need to know. It's 3D Vampire Survivors with like dumb internet memes. That's basically what it is. If you like Vampire Survivors and you can play a 3D third-person game, just go get it. It's very good. I also got Shape of Dreams, which is like a MOBA style roguelike, which I was having a bit of fun with. And then today I bought this game called Lone Star, which is like Dicey Dungeons meets what was that the one with the spaceships, the card roguelike with the spaceships, something
Cobalt
Core. Yeah, it's like Cobalt Core meets Dicey Dungeons, where you have like a spaceship and the other spaceship shooting at you, and like there's just like a bunch of like little modules that you install on your ship, and then you just get a bunch of numbers that have colors, and you assign which represent energy, and you just assign the energy to modules, and some of them like do damage, some of them do support things. Like there's one that you start with that makes another energy, but it's upgraded, and so each one of the beams, whichever one has the highest number at the end of it, like does the excess damage to the other side, and there's a whole bunch of things going on in there.
FTL.
It's not quite like FTL, because FTL is just like you medically running around trying to manage all the things, stationing everything, and this is just like it is much more turn-based. It's not like a real-time simulator where you're just kind of trying to solve problems. It's more just like, oh, there's these 3 Juns are shooting at me, and I can move the ship one space to shift which lane things are in, but otherwise I'm just trying to like make the number go up. So it's a fun game. I only got a little bit into it, but I was watching, I think it's Alexa is the name of the YouTuber who did like top 10 roguelikes of the year, and that was on his list. So I'm like, okay, that sounds like something I could get into. So I bought that, and it's been pretty good. And I also bought Once Upon a Katamari, but I haven't watched it yet. So I am looking forward to that. That might be a train game, but Katamari is always a good time.
Yeah, I have just had Expedition 33, so
yes.
That's the only new game that I needed, because that is a lot of time, and it definitely drew me in. And if you do play it, I would definitely recommend to try not to look up too much stuff, because even things like which characters are in your party or what locations you can go to can be spoilers a little bit, and it really is kind of like a cross between a movie and a turn-based RPG with real-time elements. Like, there's these two things together. They do work well together, but it's not like your choices totally change the story kind of thing. It's like you're going through a very well-made story, and then you are doing the action scenes. But yeah, I haven't gotten through all the story yet. I've been assured that there's many more twists that I've yet to come to, but yeah, the end of Act 1 was I did not see coming. So, yeah, I mean, I am going to try to get my head back a little bit more in Hearthstone. Then I actually think, even though Elise Rogue is good against Discover Hunter, which is not good for me because that's my favorite deck to play, it is kind of cool that there's something that's organically emerged to counter the shamans, because people, like, that the meta has kept evolving, and it's not just still Shaman Stone over the whole break. So
no, we just go back to Excavate Rogue, and then all roads lead back to Excavate Rogue. But yeah, we don't have any news this week because it's the holidays and Blizzard's closed, and there's not really much happening. But it has been a minute since we recorded, since we took Christmas a week off, so we do have a Worlds to talk about. And then we're going to just talk about the year that was, and the good and the bad, and where we hope things are going to be going once we get into the new standard. But let's talk about Worlds first. It's the Grand Tournament!
So, World Championships was, at this point, a couple weeks ago. The winner was Xiao Ti, and that means that this is the second year in a row that we have a winner from China. Yeah, China, of course, they have this totally rigorous separate qualification system. So, in some respects, it does make sense that we would get winners from there because they have a I think plenty of people would consider harder path to qualification, but
There's also just a lot more people, right, that they have to beat out, like regardless of
Right.
whatever the system is. Like there's just like an order of magnitude more Hearthstone players in China than in probably in all the other 3 regions combined. So because they're only given 4 slots, those 4 slots are just, regardless of whatever the route to get there is, are just going to be much more hotly contested than they are in the other regions.
Yeah, that sounds right. But at any rate, we had our top 16 was so it was Shouty and Definition in the finals, and then Lovestorm and Philfeel rounding out the top 4. The rest of the top 8 involved Chunsu, Inkuro, Yanming, who's the previous world champion, and Maxibon. So, I mean, it was going to be a stacked top 8 no matter what, but lots of very, very exciting games. At this point, one disadvantage to the show coming this much after the fact is I have a little trouble remembering exact games or matches, but I do know that there were some serious bangers in there from groups. Also, selfishly, I had a blast casting with Cora, and I think we got some full sets on those matches. So
there was the last game of the semifinal between Lovestorm and Definition. I can't remember exactly what happened in it. There was a rag somehow. It was an extremely long game. I remember with I should have looked this up before the show because it's been a couple of weeks since we watched it. But if you're looking for like something to watch in the semifinal, Lovestorm and Definition, I just remember one of them was ahead. The other one, for a few turns, like it was like, how in the world are they possibly going to survive? Just some crazy, I think it was Discover Hunter turns ending up surviving. But it wasn't quite enough in the end because the other one found this like really sort of difficult to spot rag lethal where they managed to make sure that the hit would go face. I can't remember where they got the rag from. They were not hard running the rag. So it's worth watching. The fact that I can't remember it means that you will be more surprised when you see it happen. So and just really a lot of very high level play as always. The Hunter, unfortunately, the Hunter got banned a lot. It made sense for people to ban it, but it meant we didn't get to see it as much. We saw a lot of the Control DK, a lot of the Warrior. The Warrior, actually, I feel you were saying like during it, the Control Warrior versus Control DK games tended to go the longest.
Yeah, because like, well, I mean, Warrior versus Warrior, like inherently takes a while, but actually, like once you get to the quest, things tend to sort of escalate pretty quickly.
One of them will probably hit a fast end on the quest. You have 2 shots.
I mean, at least it's not Kill Jaden versus Kill Jaden, right? So that's a little bit better.
Very pleased that we did not have Kill Jaden versus Kill Jaden. There was the odd player in there with Steam Cleaner, and actually I think Philfeel had Steam Cleaner in his Death Knight, which was sort of unusual for the event. It was a combination of Steam Cleaner and Headless Horseman, I think, to kind of go long against the Warriors. But of course, some of the Warriors had Brewmaster, right? So it gets very, very messy. But all in all,
sometimes Bob stealing things.
God.
I also wrote down Shouty final quarterfinal rogue game about 3 hours and 50 minutes was a great lethal. So I don't remember what that lethal was anymore, but if you want to find that as well in the VOD for anyone who's looking for what part of the VOD do I watch. Or if there's a particular guest caster that you're interested in. And it looked like Banterface ended up doing 2 days, I guess, that he was filling in for.
Yes. Yeah,
for Derek.
he did, I think, the first and last days, right?
Yeah.
So Thursday and Sunday, and then Cora joined on Friday. Derek and Rekvem on Saturday. So yeah, it was a good time, and of course, made it a little bit easier on the four of us regular casters because we didn't have to do quite as many matches.
And they all did a great job, I would say. Every time I tuned in, there was great insights from both regular casters and guest casters. It was a little unfortunate that the unusual lineups, like from Pocket Train and Fury Hunter, who had brought the same lineup, clearly had practiced together.
Yep.
They both underperformed compared to how we know, it was a very stacked field. Every single player there is a really good player. But I don't think either of them made the top 8.
No, they didn't. But Feel with the egg lock did make
true.
it all the way to the semifinals, and that was I do, and I guess we'll probably talk about this more in the year retrospective too. But like, I think this year's system allowing someone like Phil, who was nobody had ever heard of before this year, right? Being able to come in, make it to Worlds, and then have this really cool story, because he got swept, like 3-0'd by Gabby on that egg lock in the first match, and then ended up winning his next match, and then had to go back through Gabby to get through the deciders, and then it was able to eke out a win 3-2, and then got all the way to the semifinals, and the only win that he got in the semifinal round was on the egg lock. So it was very cool getting to see. I mean, I'm a little biased because he's a very heavy control player, and those are obviously the players that I root for. But getting to see it, like different things, and getting to see this cool storyline of he played the egg lock, he lived by the egg lock, died by the egg lock, and then having to go back up through Gabby to get out of groups was a pretty cool storyline on day 2.
Yeah, but it was once he was in that top 8, it was Maxibon, not Gabby again.
No, it was he had to play. Oh, it was no, he had to play Gabby to get out of groups.
Right, but then
That's
once
what I meant.
once he was in the top 8, it was Maxi.
Yeah.
Very good time as always, and we got a special announcement midway through from TJ, letting everyone know that the esports system for 2026 was announced. So he talked about it a bit on broadcast, and of course there's an article in Hearthstone Blizzard News talking about the system. So we're getting back our 3rd championship. So we're going to have a winter championship in April, a spring championship in June, a summer championship in August. Each of those has a qualification system based on ladder and open qualifiers. And then there's the playoffs, right, to ultimately get through from there. And I believe the way that this is drawn suggests to me that, like, you get points from ladder, or you get in through an open. That just puts you in the playoffs, and then it's the it's the people that make it through playoffs that end up in the championship.
So it looks like, and it looks like the playoffs will each also be broadcast. So that will mean a lot more esports for us to watch compared to past years that we've had recently. So that's really exciting. And they also say playoffs blitz weekend, new for 2026. It is a weekend packed with shorter open tournaments designed to qualify players for playoffs, held near the end of each competitive season.
Yeah, looks like there's still some people who can just straight up fully qualify from ladder points, right? The top earners. But yeah,
but you don't have to, which is the thing.
Right.
I mean, that was the problem with the old system, and really what's been better with even this past year's season is being able to qualify without having to spend hours and hours banging your head against ladder and having to stay up until 3:00 in the morning Eastern time if you're on the East Coast to try to get at the ladder reset. Like that's just not something that everyone who is at the level of play is able to spend the time doing. So it was disqualifying people who just couldn't put that amount of time in. And you can say, well, you need to put in the time in order to be able to compete at that level, but there's time and then there's time, and the amount of time that you needed to spend just grinding ladder, it's more than you really could. It's more than is probably worth the return, honestly, for a lot of people. So,
well, and also what a lot of those players do to practice is practice against each other in friendlies, and you can't do that if you have to grind ladder to have that top spot,
right? Yeah.
And you can't experiment with different decks if you have to grind ladder to get that top spot, etc. So there's actually ways that you might want to put in time to prepare for tournaments that's different than how you're putting in the time to top ladder as well.
Yeah,
but it makes sense that
I never qualified for anything through ladder, right? Like that was just never felt like a real possibility to me. I didn't like the grind. You know, Rachel wouldn't like me doing that, but I could occasionally commit to opens back when those were a thing, and that's how I qualified for the Hearthstone Championship in Rio, right? And because it was, you know, an open into a sort of playoffs thing, and this is kind of going back to that style. So they've got they're going to have, I think, additional opens, right, which are sort of the big longer day events. And then you mentioned this earlier, Magesa, with the blitz weekends, where those are going to be single elim, right? And that's just meant to kind of get more of them in a shorter span of time. If you've followed Hearthstone esports sort of throughout its history, you'll see how this is kind of like little bits of different pieces of things used throughout Hearthstone history. You know, so okay, we still have some of these big Swiss opens, right, that are longer all-day commitments, right? And you know, that can in some ways give you a better chance because you play through the whole Swiss, and it can be nice that no matter what, even if you do poorly, you can say, "Oh, well, I'm gonna play the whole day because I want that experience of playing through a tournament." It's like, you know, if you ever did a dream hack or something back in the day. But then, yeah, the blitz ones, single elim, are like that crazy time where there were just constant qualifiers, right? And only the winner would go in. This is that, right? Only the winner from one of these blitz things makes it into the playoffs. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's great, right? It's just more ways that different kinds of players can make it so that we have a chance at stories like Phil Feels, right? Of, you know, an unknown, you know, coming up to compete with everyone else. So, yeah, very exciting stuff. And of course, we will also be casting the playoffs. So, yeah, all 3 seasonal playoffs will feature official broadcasts. So we kind of missed the first one of the year this time around because things were just getting started, and they wanted the first sort of viewing of the new broadcast team and everything to be on a Masters tour, and I think that was good. I think people liked what they saw production-wise.
Yeah.
And yeah, now we get to have our 3 big Masters tours that are going to be broadcast, our 3, I think single day playoff casting events. And then it doesn't say that there'll be a last chance here, so I don't know if that means there won't be, or if it's just not.
I wonder
stated.
if the third championship is taking the place of the last chance, right? Because you had 2 championships that were feeding in plus last chance. It might just be that if we have 3 championships, then we don't have room for a last chance.
Yeah.
All right, and Worlds is in September. It looks like at the bottom it says the 16 World Championship players will be the top 3 from each Masters Tour, the top 3 global competitive point earners across all seasons, and 4 players from China.
Yeah, so that adds up to 16. Yeah.
Yep, there we go.
So there's no last chance. Your last chance is Summer Championships.
But yeah, and of course, as we already had heard, it's going to be in Anaheim at BlizzCon. So if you've got your tickets, amazing. Maybe I can see you there. Otherwise, definitely check out the broadcast.
First in-person Worlds in 7 years.
A long time.
It was 2019. 2019 was the last in-person Worlds because then COVID happened and we haven't had another in-person World since. So
yeah.
Yep.
That 2019 Worlds was very cool.
That was the was the
Lion one. Yeah.
Yeah, the Hearthstone Global Finals. It was. Yeah. It's kind of funny if they.
I guess it was Worlds. But yeah, it was technically Worlds, but it was like kind of a different system. Yeah.
It was just a little weird labeling wise, because if you watch the sort of highlight reel of past world champions during this event, this year's world championship, there isn't a 2018 because that year you sort of awkwardly had the world championship for 2018 actually took place in 2019.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah.
There's one labeled as 2019 that was really, at the very beginning of 2019, and then it says, 2019 HGF, Hearthstone Global Finals, right, for Lion. And I'm like, they should have just said 2018 on the other ones so people don't get confused. But
yeah, sounds like it's a whole nother system when it isn't. But yeah, no, I'm really excited to see an in-person Hearthstone Championship for the first time. So
it'll be, I think the groups will be like doing earlier in the week, and then what will actually be on stage is the top 8.
Yeah, that makes sense because I mean, if it's like 4 days worth, right? Then you really only have maybe 2 days of it. But yeah, I wonder if they're going to do like deciders on the Saturday, maybe.
Yeah, we might do deciders.
Yeah. But yeah, either way, it'll be better than sitting there watching Overwatch because there's nothing else to watch. So, take those.
Because it was the only place with chairs. There was a few chairs in the Hearthstone Tavern, but not a lot. So if you needed to sit down, you just kind of had to go and watch Overwatch, which for me, I have no idea what's happening at all because I've never played any Overwatch. I can hear the enthusiasm of the casters, but like, I don't know, but I've got a chair. So sometimes that's what you need.
Yep.
But this also means that there'll be a place to sit down that's Hearthstone related when you need to sit down.
Yes.
That's a big improvement.
Right. Well,
yeah, that's it for esports.
Yeah. So, we're already talking about the year that was. So let's just go do that some more.
So what we wanted to do today is talk a little bit about Hearthstone in 2025. We'll also put in our hopes for 2026. We had as well, I think, a recent patron bonus content where we were talking about what might happen at rotation. But the real answer there is we just don't know, right? A quarter of the cards that, I guess if you count core, like a fifth of the cards we haven't seen yet, right? Because they'll be in the new set. And then even when you have seen cards, it's really impossible to predict what's going to happen, especially with a year like this where so many decks revolve so highly around cards from last year or year before now, from 2024. But we'll start with this year. So the elephant in the room is the power level reset that we've had, starting really with Great Dark Beyond, minus StarCraft, of course, but focusing just on the 3 sets from this year. We've had... They haven't specifically said that they're waiting for rotation. That is a thing that we are extrapolating. But they have said specifically that they are looking for a lower power level. And I think even though there have definitely been some cards like Elise that have stood out from more recent sets, and we have had, I think overall, there's almost always been a deck that I've enjoyed playing in the meta. But I also have like a record amount of dust because I haven't been crafting anything because I haven't needed to, because I'm not wanting, or like I've crafted any card I wanted to play with as soon as I wanted to play with it because I'm fortunate enough to be in the position where I have that kind of dust reserves. But that just hasn't happened a lot. So I'm sitting on a lot of dust now. I think it just kind of encapsulates that a lot of the new cards have not seen play or have seen niche play. There's been evolving archetypes, like even something like this, I guess we're calling it an Elise Rogue, but Ashemain Rogue, whatever Rogue. Control Rogue? Not really. Burgle Rogue?
Play cards rogue? Who knows? Yeah.
Good.
Tempo
good cards
Rogue.
Slempo rogue?
Slempo Rogue, there we go.
Yeah.
That, shows that things are evolving, and it is using some of the new cards, but it's also using, some of the old cards. Overall, the power level of especially the new packages has been less, right? Like there were some Imbue decks that saw play. Notably, I can remember Imbue Druid. What else from Imbue? Imbue Paladin got buffed and saw some play.
Yeah.
My fear would be that Imbue Mage sees play.
After rotation.
And yeah, so I guess I would hope that whatever is in the expansion that happens at the same time is powerful enough to not let that happen. It's funny, like, if we had a period where like rotation happened, but the new expansion was not out yet, I think I would kind of like that, because then we could have this sort of weird thing where it's like really not very much stuff, and maybe we do get to do an Imbue Mage and get it out of our system, and then we get the new cards, and I want all the new stuff to be what's good.
Or just revert all the buffs.
Well, they do that.
No, no.
Right,
They revert the nerfs.
Oh,
when
I
the
see
stuff when the stuff rotates. I'm wondering if it's even worth just saying like, okay, all the stuff that got buffed, that from what was designed and printed last year, maybe with a couple of exceptions, right? Like the one that like the one from Priest where it says, where they added the word playable to the cards that got generated, right? Like probably leave that one, but like a lot of them, maybe if those were designed at that power level and then they had to get buffed to keep up with last year, maybe you just revert everything.
Well,
right?
I mean, they didn't really buff them enough for most of them to keep up with last year.
But
it
they
was
still
really,
did.
I think, mostly the nerfs that did that. I would be hesitant to bring the power level down anymore. I do hear what you're saying, and maybe if there's any, I can't think of any particular buffs off the top of my head that seem like they'll be problematic.
I don't think any are, right? If there are, it's a different problem, right? My guess is that, like, okay, we've had our deflationary year, and now they are going to target high, right? Like they're going to seek a very good first expansion to this year, sort of in light of everything that's happened, and because no matter what, relative to what we've had, it wouldn't take that much.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that's worth keeping in mind and the other reason that we're kind of led to believe that this is a power reset year, even though it hasn't been stated, is the fact that the 3 sets that were really the ones that didn't land, like Great Dark Beyond, Into the Emerald Dream, and Lost City of Ungoro, relied pretty heavily on what are called parasitic designs. And this is, it sounds worse than it is. It sounds like it's a negative. It's not. It's a term that Mark Rosewater over in Magic coined a while back, which basically just means that the cards are intended to really only work with each other and aren't going to be necessarily get a lot of support outside of that one set. So like Imbue's a perfect example of this, right? So are starships, where you're not getting any more starship cards after Great Dark Beyond. I mean, you got obviously the Protoss mini set, but like once you get out of that block, you're not getting any more cards that say if you're building a starship on it. And what that led to, first of all, one of the reasons that you do that is if you want to print more cards without being able to necessarily make any of the existing archetypes stronger, right? That those cards are only going to be able to be used in those decks that are doing those types of things. I mean, we've seen those kind of come and go and get other support later through other support, but ultimately you're not getting any more starship cards. You're not getting any more cards that say imbue your hero power, that sort of a thing. But also the flip side of that is that when those don't land, they don't land hard, right? Because it's not really like you can say, well, maybe they're going to get better in another set. They're not going to. That's the whole point, is that they're not going to. Where we saw that pattern kind of break was with Across the Timeways, where we didn't have that, right? You had a package in the Fabled Legendary, and then everything else was, sometimes there were some packages, but there wasn't like necessarily a hard, like you're never going to see anything that gets fed by this ever again. And that seemed to be a lot more successful. So it might even just be that if we get away from some of these parasitic designs, and either it's by choice or just by necessity of them having to print more cards without bringing the power level back up, that we might be able to get to a better place, even with, whatever got buffed and whatever we're left with once rotation happens.
I certainly don't mind cards that are synergistic, and I almost wonder if so technically in biology, a parasitic relationship is actually just a subtype of symbiotic relationship. What people usually mean by symbiotic is actually called mutualism. Sorry, I teach this sometimes. But and I think like how symbiotic relationships can be positive or negative, the decks that I tend to like the most tend to have a little bit like a package that helps form a core of a deck, but then there's multiple packages interacting, or there's other things going on. So it's not just a good cards deck, right? And like this is all much easier said than done. But like my favorite decks, like for example, Discover Hunter, I think would fall into this category.
Yeah.
Is there's 1 to 2, sometimes even for something like the Fire and Rage Warrior that we had a long time ago with the Anima, what's his name? The 1/4 that got bigger when you damage it. Yeah. That deck had like 3 different packages in it, but they all kind of worked together. And it didn't you could build the archetype out of different building blocks. The Discover package from Great Dark Beyond has been used, and we've had lots of different Discover hunters that were all a little different and all played a little differently. They just had that sort of core package that didn't necessarily take up the whole deck, right? It's not that many cards in the deck. Or at least that many cards that are specific to it. Obviously, you play a lot of Discovers, but you might play those anyway. That kind of deck where there's synergies, you're putting things in because they synergize with each other, but it's not just like, I don't know, Quest Paladin. Every single thing in there is a Murloc for the Quest Paladin, or Imbue Druid. Every single thing is there specifically, like, only works in that deck almost. Protoss Priest was kind of only one package that was very tightly wound, like you had to run that, but then it did get better with other generically good cards that came in. And I'm biased because I just liked that deck. I felt like it was a good mix of proactive and late game.
Yeah. But I mean, like, if you look at like what Shaman got in Across the Timeways, right? Like, you got like, you have this whole damage your own minions package, right? A lot of those don't see play, but you still do see like Static Shock and even Primordial Overseer sometimes being played out of that, right? Where you don't have to necessarily go all in on like Flux Revenant and Stormrook and whatever, like have to go all in on like doing AoE against your board to try to get most out of it. But like a couple of those cards can still be useful and still be played, right? And I think that's the difference between something like a package like that and Across the Timeways and like a parasitic design of starships or imbue hero powers or whatever, where they really are only going to work where you need to run most of them, right? You have to, like, if you're running a starship deck, you're running most of the starship pieces. You may or may not run the one card that says if you're building a starship, but you probably are, right? And you're never getting anything more than that, right? And a lot of the quests even they weren't necessarily parasitic, but they felt a lot like it. Like the priest quest, for example, like you probably could get more support for that, but not really. Like it was really designed around the drink and around like the cards that repeated themselves. You really kind of had to run specific cards in order to get that to go. And even then the payoff wasn't all that great and whatnot. And a lot of the quests kind of were like that too, where they just were relying on the specific cards that were printed as support for those quests. And if that quest wasn't good, then none of those cards were good, which is very different than how Across the Timeways feels, and hopefully how the next set will feel.
Yeah. I mean, there's scattered things here and there from quests, from Imbue. Like Imbue Druid is just nature spells, right?
Yeah.
So that if there's good nature spells, right, that could get better. And then in terms of quests, like maybe there's a world where there's enough good corpse spenders that you run the Death Knight quest, although it probably still needs rush or something.
Or they print more things that shuffled things into the deck for Rogue, right? That are worth playing. Like it's possible, but like again, the way that it was designed, it seems like those were pretty well contained within those classes, even if they weren't necessarily strictly parasitic designs.
Yeah.
With quests, I think the issue that they had was a little bit like, and maybe this was a disagreement within the team and a lack of leadership resolving it. I don't know. Again, we don't know what's happening inside the team. But it seemed like on the one hand, there was a desire for the quests at some point in the cycle, or they wouldn't have done it. But on the other hand, from things that we've gotten in like dev comments on balance changes, there seems to be a reluctance to make them good, at least most of them, because of, I think, worries about like always having the same power spike in a deck, or is it going to feel like really samey and hard to respond to?
I think it's just Stormwind happened, and so they were scared about quests. And I think you can't be scared of your core design for a set, or it's not gonna go over great.
I mean, if it's that scary, don't do it, right? I mean, that's just what it comes down to. Yeah.
So
yeah, that's part of what I mean by like it feels like there wasn't the leadership there to be like, we're either all in or we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
It also felt like that fear was a misunderstanding of the cause and effect that brought about Stormwind, right? Like the support cards were bananas, right? The mana reduction was bananas. Ruined Mithril Rod was what greased the wheels of Quest Warlock in Stormwind.
And that quest specifically was just over the top, and they've had to nerf it 5-6 times in Wild, and it's still broken.
Why? Like, Wild is a place of very powerful support tools and cards in general, right? So in that case, it matters the actual how the quest works and what it can do on that sort of power level. But when it was in Standard, like after Mithril Rod and other things got hit, right? Like it was not a crazy quest in Standard.
Yeah. But it was just like the rest of the quest like took over. Like I can see them going through those design sessions and saying, how can we do this without having Brian Kibler tweet, hey, quests suck at us every day for the next 18 months? And I guess they did it because he's not playing Hearthstone anymore. But I mean, that's I don't think that's
people
the
were
way
saying
they wanted to do it.
Quests suck in a completely different manner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and some of those quests, like Quest Shaman in Stormwind, was the Overload one with
really fun.
Cool. It was super fun. I loved that one, and I felt like it wasn't uninteractable, but it gave you a clear plan of what you were doing. You had to really think about how you were going to do the overload, when you wanted to proc like the part of the quest that would untick your overload crystals. You had to think about how you were going to execute the plan after you got your quest reward, so it wasn't just like exactly the same every time. Like some of them I think were really well designed. Quest Mage, the main problem was that it encouraged not playing minions because of the specific frost spells that were in the pool.
Yeah.
Like I think if you made the quest a little worse but gave them frost spells that didn't require minions, that actually would have been better. But because they're like, we're not any good frost spells that didn't target minions.
Also, you remove Incanter's Flow from that meta, and it's a different...
Right, yeah.
And it's a very different meta.
Right.
Yeah. Also that.
Right, like the Demon Hunter quest was the mana reduction, so that's a fundamental issue. But yeah, Mage had Incanter's Flow, Warlock had Ruined Mithril Rod. If you don't know, both of those cards reduce the mana of... Incanter's Flow is all the spells in your deck, so it was a Keleseth-like thing, and Ruined Mithril Rod was like you drew cards, which was a thing what you wanted to do, and then it reduced everything in your hand. So like those sorts of things were greasing the wheels. But yeah, I don't want to harp too much on that.
Yeah.
Ungoro was a bummer. I think it was the biggest bummer we've had in a long time, if not Hearthstone's history.
Yeah. It might be like since like Rastakhan's Rumble. Probably the worst set since Rastakhan's Rumble, I would say.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Which is saying a lot. So
it had great flavor. I think people, were really excited for it coming back. Because it had been such a beloved set. I think that made the expectations even higher. Elise really is the one thing out of that set that has like landed perhaps too well.
Yeah.
I think she's a really cool card, but she is in every deck now.
I think though that there's as sick as people are of Elise and want something done, I believe that it is possible for core set change, rotation, and then the new set being good enough at such that they incentivize decks that just cannot do 10 different mana costs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we won't have Ziliax. who right now helps fill in that curve. We will still have Shaladricel, but like
they're not.
and
Most
the
of them aren't even running
package.
Shaladricel. I haven't seen Shaladricel in a while.
The new rogue is, although not happily.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they're running like they run Wisp. Like it's a load bearing poster basically. But yeah.
Yeah. So we will still have some of, and like the Fire-Arc package, but the Fire-Arc package is significantly worse. Like you've definitely seen much less of that. But it will be like an option still. But yeah, I'm hoping that there's enough power in like more proactive strategies that want to do something other than Elise. I still have fun playing her with how like flexible she is. But yeah, I imagine they'll see what happens, and then you could like take a durability off the location or something. I don't think that would kill her, but that would make every mana level worse. Or something else. I'm not a designer. I don't know exactly the best way to nerf the card, but yeah, I mean, of the sets that we had this year, right? So StarCraft was in 2025, even though it's not in this standard year. Then we had Into the Emerald Dream, Lost City of Ngoro, and Across the Time Waves. StarCraft, definitely polarizing. I think I actually liked the power level that it had. I just think it's awkward when you have a mini set with that much power, because they only had like there were different versions of the archetypes, but there was really only 3 archetypes in a sense of like the Protoss, the Zerg, and the Terran. And Protoss was underpowered comparatively at launch. Which for anyone who's listening who played more recently, Protoss was underpowered at launch. I know that's all you see now, but that's because the Zerg and the Terran got nerfed hard at a certain point. I think there were StarCraft decks that were aggravating to face, like the Zerg DK.
Yeah.
In my opinion, was really aggravating. It was an aggravating play pattern. And I know that Protoss Mage has gotten a lot of anger on probably the most hated deck on Reddit of any current deck that we have. And I can see why. For me, it's not the OTK. It's the freezing elemental that makes me want to.
Yeah, Sleet Skater's going away at rotation 2, and good riddance.
Like
that's
thank
just
God, no Sleet Skater.
Yeah.
I liked the basic like design of the Protoss. I thought they really hit the like StarCraft feeling well. Even as someone who didn't really play StarCraft, it gave me a sense of those games. And from people who do play StarCraft, it seemed like the flavor was hit there.
Yeah.
For the most part. It just stood out so much compared to all the rest of the sets. I think if we'd had StarCraft hit like that and then Into the Emerald Dream had been that powerful, it would have felt different.
Yeah. I mean, it's also that like, it did, and I played a lot of StarCraft in my day. I don't have the reflexes for it anymore. My APM is not nearly what it used to be, and it wasn't good to begin with. But like they did hit the flavor of it really well. It mechanically, it actually did kind of feel StarCrafty, and like the entire meta felt like StarCraft for those 2 months, right? And which is good when that's the intent. I think the problem was how to manage that when you're trying to move on to the next set and StarCraft is still there. And I do wonder if that would have been better as like a limited time event rather than, I mean, they wouldn't have been able to sell it, which would have made it harder, right? Or like an alternate game mode or something, as opposed to a mini set that was going to be in standard for the following standard year. I think that's really because like those cards stuck around for a lot longer, and despite multiple nerfs, right? Because even the Protoss stuff got nerfed pretty hard too, right? Like Chrono Boost used to cost 4 mana, and they had to nerf. Then they also had to nerf the Zerg locations again after the initial, because the initial Zerg nerf was for the Death Knight deck that was doing the Zerg that buffed everybody. But then we had all of the Warlock locations that were just run in every control Warlock until they nerfed those too. And I do wonder if those needed to be significantly more powerful so that the meta would feel like StarCraft. And for that, it was successful. The problem is, what do you do once that time is over? And I don't think that's necessarily where they had been able to stick the landing.
Well, I don't mind having nerfs that are minor enough that the deck still exists. I think in general that's a good thing. It's just that the new decks weren't as powerful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some of the and the ones that were really standout powerful sometimes had play patterns that they wanted to nerf hard, like Imbue Hunter, for example.
Yeah.
So then you fall back on Protoss Priest again.
Yeah.
Because it's a fun and powerful deck. So
I mean, it also goes back to the whole parasitic design thing, right? Because this is the most parasitic of parasitic designs with the StarCraft mini set, right? Like, those were designed to everything in that mini set was to work together and to only work together in that set. And again, this is why I say it's not necessarily a negative all the time, because if you want to make it a set feel like StarCraft, that is the way you do it, is you make a whole bunch of cards that are supposed to feel like StarCraft and release them all together and have them be StarCraft. The problem was, after that time ends, those decks still feel like StarCraft, and they were still powerful, and they had to be so powerful that everything else was crowded out for those 2 months that they were new. But then there wasn't a plan to make those gracefully, exit stage left when it was time for those to not be the focus of the meta.
Yeah, I almost wish that it had been like an event that passed, right, rather than a full-on mini set, where the cards stuck around.
Yeah, that's what we would say. I don't know. I know that I'm biased because one of the decks that stayed good was a deck that I enjoy, but I also would have been happy with fewer Protoss mages, even though I know the Protoss mages are not overpowered. But yeah, I mean, I think they were successful in what they wanted to do in StarCraft, but it was hard with the way that the rest of the year went, in some ways. Into the Emerald Dream, we did have some Imbue decks land. We talked already about the sort of design space of Imbue. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those come back potentially after rotation. We'd have to see what they have left, but like Imbue Druid, I feel like could totally come back. I don't know what of the support for Imbue Paladin would go away if we'll have enough dragons, but I could see that one being there. So Imbue Priest, maybe. We won't have the Hunter tourist stuff anymore. So that has been like the staple of all proactive priests.
Yeah.
Since Perils. But it's a strong hero power. I could see that coming in all different kinds of priests after rotation.
I mean, if random BS is good enough to see play in a 4-set meta, which it often is, right? And especially with small discover pools. Like, the discover pools are significantly smaller in a 4-set meta than they are in a 6-set meta too. So I could see Imbue potentially being something that is played at first just because you just are going to get a lot of the Imbue minions, which is going to make your Imbue stronger, and then you just get random stuff and hope that it's good enough. And that might be fine. I could see it.
There might even be an Elise Priest that has random stuff out of Imbue. Maybe it has the top end from Time Ways. We'll have to see. But if they give more damage spells, I could see it in whatever the new set is. Dark Gift was the other major keyword from Into the Emerald Dream. That I thought was a really successful keyword. It's not a parasitic keyword. It was just like, except for Wallow Warlock, there was not like Dark Gift decks, but I think that was totally fine. Xavius is a really cool card. Creature of Madness is a really cool card. I like how they keep adding things to Raptor Herald. That's a clever choice. And
the cares about Dark Gift cards have been kind of sketchy, but the Dark Gift cards themselves have been, relatively solid, depending, right? Like, the Creature of Madness is everywhere, right? Because it's a 2 that gives you a 3.
Yeah.
Nightmare Fuel now in Rogue. In Warrior, right? The aggressive warriors, you'll definitely see sometimes the 2-cost burn spell where you discover a warrior minion with a dark gift. And then
or the
Xavius
dragon with
good.
the dark gift. And Xavius is just good. Yeah. There's the 2/1 mana 2/1 that discovers the dragon with a dark gift as well in the Dragon Warrior, and that's a really strong card.
That's
in
all of them. Yeah,
deck.
Yeah, for sure.
It just makes the discover choice more interesting. I think that was the design. Like, there's an interview somewhere where they stated that was their design goal with it. I think that's absolutely true. That's what it does, because it adds another layer to what you're discovering. Especially with something like Xavius, where normally you sometimes have to choose between, do I really need this particular minion, or am I looking more at the synergy of the effect? And sometimes you get lucky effects that are really fun, like double battle cry on something that cares about it. A double battle cry Grifta and Discover Hunter. Let's go.
I got wrecked by a double battle cry Zephyrus today. So yeah.
And on the one hand, that can feel frustrating to face, but it's really fun to do, and it's also not consistent enough to be super frustrating to face, I think.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just get got.
Yeah. Sometimes they just get charge on their thing, and it's like, well, you get charge on Mothership was always a fun one.
Or sometimes, I mean, the only one that's kind of frustrating sometimes is the +4/+5 when they have Creature of Madness into a 3-drop, and there's just like not really, it puts it on top of your deck, but that early you don't necessarily care. And if you're drawing like a 7/8, like it's fine, right? So that's the only one that sometimes feels kind of bad. It's like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do about this on turn 3? But other than that, a lot of them just kind of they're generally inoffensive. And the only ones that really didn't hit are the Death Knight ones, because they're just discover a minion or discover an undead, right? And those pools are a little bit too wide, but it's Xavius being something from your deck is always going to be good. Creature of Madness being something from your, that's always cost 3 that you're able to curve into, or just play that into 3-on-5 is always good, and it's good enough to justify thing, especially on turn 2 when you're not doing a whole lot a lot of the time anyway. And some of those 3-drops can just flip games on their own. So
yeah, overall, I think that's an example of like a really well done keyword. And I definitely expect to continue seeing Creature of Madness and Xavius next year. The Wild Gods were not a keyword, but sort of a series of cards from Emerald Dream. We saw a little bit of Malorn while we were seeing Imbue decks. Or I guess some of it wasn't even always Imbue decks, but what were the Wild Gods? Are you finding them?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll mark this.
Yeah, I mean they're all the big things, right?
Yeah.
Omen, right? Volcross. Escena in Mage, Cenarius.
Boris Lord, Cenarius. Yeah. Goldrin. Forgot about Goldrin. You haven't seen him in a while. The one that said Friendly Beast deal double damage. That could come back too, depending on what gets printed. Right? But
there might be an Imbue Hunter in the future.
Ursol always has a shot.
Ursol was pretty meta for a while until they nerfed the spell that he was always casting, right? Oh no, they nerfed Shaladrisil, because Shaladrisil he was able to double up on that because it was 7, so he was always able to cast that.
I could see in a lower power meta Ursol Renewing Flames coming back.
Yeah. We've had a couple of Aviana priests. They haven't been great, but they've been playable, right? Ashamane's just seen play now, right? So
yep.
It's really just the big thing with that was Malorn, which would discover one, and if you imbued your hero power 4 times, it would set its cost to 1, which is when you would see them a lot, right? And because imbue's fallen out, we're not seeing Malorn, which means we're not seeing those as Wild Gods. But some of the Wild Gods themselves are definitely still seeing play. Tortola too. I mean, thank God we moved away from Chemspill Tortola, but that was like the terror of the meta for a while, not too long ago, right? It's just that we're not seeing them coming out of Malorn, so we're not thinking of them as wild gods. But those legendaries in general, a lot of them are still playable.
Yeah. I hope we don't get an Agamagan deck again.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have definitely seen some of those go. I feel like somebody was mentioning in the Hearthstone Hangout in the Discord that they were playing the Ashamain Rogue, and they were facing someone doing the like Medivh thing in Priest, and they got all of that stuff.
Oh God!
And they got it out before the Priest, all for free.
Very rude.
Why is Rogue?
Very rude. They were like, salt for my opponent. I feel bad. If it was me, I would delete the deck and never return. You know, don't feel bad enough not to do it and win the game, but honestly, I would also do it and win the game. So, and feel bad at the same time. That is what I would do. We've seen from Emerald Dream also, I mean, Ysera is definitely an influential card. Fyrak, hugely influential until he got nerfed. Might come back in a lower power meta, I don't know. Because he still enables Elise, just at a different mana point.
Yeah. And I mean, Shalatris still played a lot too. I mean, even Narrowlex occasionally still sees play.
Right, because you're still playing Ysera, right? So, yeah, and if you have any other big dragons.
And sometimes he's just a curve filler for Elise, but, you know.
Yeah. Or if you have Briar Spawn Drakes or whatever.
Yeah.
Which a few decks will do that. So, we might still see him around, especially if we end up with new dragons. Ysera, I will admit, I was worried about Ysera when we were doing reveals. But that extra mana comes late enough that it hasn't felt super egregious when I'm facing it.
It was really only when Rogue was able to cheat it out, right? And then with the Scoundrel and get it out early, and sometimes it would just go so far ahead on curve that it was hard to get back from it, but then they've nerfed all that stuff, so that doesn't happen as often.
Yeah, so as long as the Ysera's not getting out super, super early, I think it is kind of cool to give everybody access to a little more mana if they are able to go really late in those late game things, so it's not just a druid thing. I think that's kind of cool, in the way that it's actually worked out. So, but yeah, when I first saw that, I was like, really? Because I rarely play decks with Ysera in them, and then when I'm facing decks, I usually have won or lost before the 15 mana crystals comes into play. I will sometimes forget that that's going to happen, and I'm like, why do I have 11 mana now in a game that's gone long? It's like, oh yeah, I was just planning around 10 mana, and then now I have an extra mana, so that's cool, I guess.
Almost like a dark gift.
Occasionally that's helpful, I don't know, I'm just looking at how much mana I have left. So, yeah, that was Into the Emerald Dream. We already talked some about Lost City of Ngoro. And then, of course, in Across the Timeways, we got Fabled, which I think is a really cool keyword, because it just lets them have a package without making the whole set about that package. And Rewind, which is much snappier than it used to be, so that helps a lot. And we definitely see some of those Rewind cards see play. Not necessarily a ton of them, but like the Weapon Thing and Dragon Warrior. I've seen the occasional Portal Vanguard go by.
Chrono Daggers was seeing play for a little bit in Rogue.
Yeah, I bet we see that card come back.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just hoping that Cease to Exist gets its time in the sun, like, because but that would mean actually having a control priest, and which we have not had since they nerfed Shard of the Naru, my beloved. So.
We will continue to have that as what you blame for it.
Yes.
Yep. But yeah, so that was our year, and overall, I really liked all of the themes of these, even though I don't always love the more Warcraft themes.
Yeah. The flavor
I
was
liked
good.
the flavor was good all year. We talked a lot about the power and questions there, and I do really like the design in Across the Time Ways, even though I wish we were playing more new decks and things like the World Championships, but there has still been innovation in what decks are being played, and there has still, like, I'm generally enjoying the meta. I've just not been super excited about it. So what I really hope that we have in 2026 is a meta that I can be super excited about deck building for and stuff like that, even though I'm not really mainly a deck builder, and seeing what other people deck build.
And just have new stuff to try, right? Like that and have the games feel fulfilling, I think, is sometimes the games right now just go very long and they felt very samey. Like that's been the main complaint, right? Is that a lot of the metas have felt samey because they've been revolving around a lot of the same things. Either, some of the legendaries that we've been seeing a lot, they've nerfed them and they've kind of changed over. Sometimes it was Fyrax, sometimes it's Elise. Or Ziliax has been in every deck since it was printed, right? And thank goodness that's gonna go. I think, but it's like a lot of those neutrals have been kind of the same, and that's because a lot of the class cards just haven't hit, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully, if this power reset that they haven't called a power reset works out the way that we're hoping, then maybe we'll get back to that. But it's, I mean, and that's not unique to this year's cards either. We've had plenty of metas where we were revolving around things like Kazakhstan, where everything was Kazakhstan one way or the other, right? Or something like that. So that's not really a new thing, but it has kind of felt like the designs for these sets were kind of built in a bubble and not necessarily as a cohesive meta for the full year. And hopefully we'll be able to get back to that, but we'll have to see what that looks like.
In terms of some of the other things that we had this year, they've done a lot of balance changes over the year. We're not going to go through all the balance changes because that would be insane.
I did run the numbers though.
Okay.
I went through today, and this is based on what I was seeing in the new Hearthstone wiki. So we had 13 balance change patches that accounted for 51 cards nerfed and 51 cards buffed and 81 cards nerfed over the course of the year.
Whew.
Which is a lot. And it came out to about one balance change a month. There was like 1 month where we didn't, but there was 1 month where we got multiple, or a couple months where we got multiple, so it kind of evened out. But yeah, that's like 130 and change cards that change. I mean, that the actual number of unique cards might be a little bit because we had some that went up and down, but 130 and change and changes is a lot for the course of just a year. It's a lot to keep up with. It's, I mean, this is going back to the days when we went 6 months before they changed Giggling Inventor. It's just a completely different course of events. And, whether the game is better or worse for it is kind of hard to say. I mean, I'm glad that they have this as a tool in their tool belt. And I wouldn't want it to be like going back to the Giggling Inventor days. But it also does feel like we're getting cards that either they're too confident or not confident enough in, right? And then we're kind of getting first draft versions of them until they actually see how they're used in the meta, which maybe is the right thing to do. I'm not even necessarily saying it's wrong to do it that way, but it can feel frustrating when we have some of these things that look really cool and they just don't hit, and then they get buffed, and sometimes they hit and sometimes they don't.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely would like when things are changed, when we don't have like a meta where it has like one giant outlier and then we're just sitting there for weeks and weeks with that. So, and I think there is something to be said for stability in decks, which despite that many balance changes, we have had a lot of stability in decks. I mean, sometimes they've deleted decks, but like the Zerg Death Knight, but mostly not. And there is something to be said for players who are a little bit less engaged, don't necessarily mind having the meta changing less often, although I think it's a problem for those players in that like they're probably also spending less money on things, and then you mostly get packs of new cards that then you're not using because it's the old cards that you need, but then you don't want to craft them because they're going to rotate. Like that would be a problem if you're a new player, I think. But there's a balance in how do we make sure the meta's fresh and how do we make sure that there's continuity. Other stuff that I guess actually, speaking of the like experience for like how much you want to engage with the game, we've had tons of events this year. Like right now it feels like there's always an event. Like the last event ended and it immediately started a new event, and we've basically had like 4 events in a row with no time in between or something like that. And I don't mind that because I tend to play enough to finish them anyway, but some of them have been hard to finish. Yeah. And I know for people who don't dedicate as much time to the game as we do, but who have trouble with that sort of FOMO of the event, which, you know, human beings are kind of like, these things are designed to get into our psychology of not wanting to miss out, right? And so we actually have one patron who I reached out to about a coaching, and he said, don't worry about it, I'm not actually playing right now. And one of the things that he cited for why he's not actually playing right now is being exhausted by all of the events that are going on. And he just like didn't want to log in to complete them, but then that made him not really want to log in at all. You know, one could say, well, it's just free extra stuff, you don't have to do it, and that's totally true. But there's probably too many.
Yeah, I mean, and they don't feel special, right? Like that's like when we had an event, it was usually like to celebrate a new expansion release or something like that, and it would feel special, and then you get this extra thing. And now it's just always there, and especially when it's making you play the game in a way that you don't want to play it, it can be kind of frustrating. Like some of the weekly quests, like, I mean, the worst of this was probably in the middle of Ungoro, where it was like making you play Ungoro cards. And it's like, well, but I don't want to play Ungoro cards because they're not good right now. And so do I just, you know, and also the fact that it would very often make you play them in ranked, right? I think they moved away from that now. Now it's saying traditional modes, but there was a period of time where you had to be playing
it still
on
gives
ranked
you
ladder.
Extra.
Yeah.
So you don't have to play it in ranked, but it takes twice as long.
Yeah.
If you don't play it in ranked.
But then you're also having to play like jank on ladder if you care about your rank. Those things are kind of at odds, and they make you feel a little weird about that too. So I don't know. I think that I get them wanting to continuously have a reason for you to want to log in. I don't love them leaning on events like this as much. But I mean, this is also like the reality of a free-to-play game in 2026. It's that you have to have some call to action to go in and log in to do the thing all the time, because that's how you get your, you know, daily average users or whatever the metric is today.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the events have calmed down a little bit from their worst in terms of like most hard to complete. But ultimately it is extra stuff. But yeah, it's felt like a few too many. Maybe it'll chill a little bit. We'll have to see.
I mean, it's both like the events constantly happening and the Dark Moon Fair constantly being there. Yeah. And that it feels like being nagged for both time and money.
Even if I was willing to shell out $168 for cosmetics, not like every month, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. But, and the prices for all of the things have not been the same, but because it requires doing a little research to find out like how much is actually going to cost you. We talked at length about what we think about the Dark Moon Fairs, so we don't have to
Yeah. But I
go
think
into it again.
it is worth calling out that is the thing that they brought in this year. They clearly are not backing down from it. If anything, they're doing more of it all the time. I would love it if it didn't lag my client for the first 15 seconds to show me the stupid pop-up. That would be great.
Yeah.
Because I have no intention of engaging with it at all. Even the free spin, I haven't looked at it once. Because like, even if like, worst case, if I did get the free spin and I got the thing that was gonna, you know, the $168 thing at the end of it, I wouldn't feel good about equipping it. So it's like, well, why would I even take the free spin? But it's it is a thing. And, you know, I mean, ultimately, if it allows them, if it's what they need to do in order to keep making the game and it's something that you can just completely ignore and not engage with, then fine. I just wish that it was a little bit more upfront and honest in the way that it was doing. Like, if you're going to sell those things, or, you know, charge however much and say how much it's going to be upfront rather than obfuscating the cost behind these pulls, I think it would be fine. I think it's just the fact that it feels shady the way that they're presenting it. It doesn't make me feel good as someone who creates content for this game. It still doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, as a rule of thumb, if you can't have it in Belgium or for child users because you might run afoul of gambling laws, then maybe don't do it.
Yeah.
And players who are in those countries, by the way, just can't get it at all. It's like they can't even spend $168 for it. They just can't get it at all, or do a free spin or anything if you live in one of those countries that doesn't allow it, just because you live in a country that has reasonable laws about these things. But anyway, there was also an arena rework. I don't play a lot of arena. I know you've been playing more of that recently at all.
I like it. I'm so much worse at it. But it's it's cool, like getting to pick a legendary, and you know that legendary then has some kind of cards that go with it right from the start. I think feels better, so that you can kind of sort of work towards something, or know that you have at least some power. There are certain things that, at least if I'm believing the points given by you know, Hearthstone deck tracker in terms of what's good, I'm like, should these packages even exist, right? Because they seem pretty bad. But yeah, in general, it's been pretty cool, and has been sort of my I'm not loving standard right now, but I have quests to complete. You know, can I do them in arena? Or like, I feel like playing, but I don't like standard. You know, I guess I'll do some arena, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it is better than the old version. I do still wish that there was a way to, because the one thing that it doesn't let you do is like pivot in a draft, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if you've done any drafting in Magic, for instance, like sometimes you'll draft like a big bomb, you know, rare in your first pack, and then you'll start drafting your next few picks and then find out that the stuff that you're actually being offered or that's falling to you is not line up with that first big bomb that you picked, and you'll have to pivot away from it. And you can't really do that in arena because you've already invested like 3 or 4 picks into that legendary. And then if the rest of the draft doesn't cooperate, then you still kind of end up kind of stuck in that direction. It's harder to get completely screwed with the way that the buckets are set up. It still can happen, and you don't really, there's no recourse for you at that point, right? Because it's not like you're going to be able to like get another legendary, because then you're just going to be down a legendary. I mean, you could redraft it later, but you have to lose twice in order to do that, and they don't even allow you to do that all the time. But it's definitely, it gives you a little bit more flexibility, especially in Underground, being able to redraft some cards and being able to pivot away, which is kind of what the ideal version that I would have liked is like draft 35 and cut 5, right? Just to give yourself a chance to like pick some things and maybe not have it work out. But I think being able to do that, but after the after you've played a game and lost is a fair compromise.
I do know that one thing, I think for people who play Arena some of the time, the rewards are worth about the same if the packs are valuable to you, and if you have a fair amount of gold. I am personally sitting on just like a ton of gold right now because I haven't been buying packs because of the aforementioned. I've realized I don't need them because I just have dust, and so I just like haven't. This past expansion, I didn't buy any packs at all with gold, not one. Part of that is because I did get the pre-order, so that's definitely not going to be the situation everyone has. But I think if you don't play Arena that often and you are someone who gets the pre-order, it's not necessarily an issue for you. But if you're an Arena main, I think that what I have been hearing from people who are Arena mains is that the emphasis on packs, which are not that useful to you, instead of gold, which is what you need, makes it a lot harder to play without sort of constantly putting in money to it.
Yeah.
And so I think I underestimated the degree to which that would be true at the time.
Yeah, it's like because of the tickets, like you never get half a ticket, right? So before it was like, well, even if you got shy of going infinite, right, you would get a certain amount of gold back. And now the way that's true is like, well, I didn't get my 2 tickets back, I just got 1 ticket. And so, but there's no in between, right? It's not like, well, I got 100 gold of the 150 I needed. Oh, I got 140 gold of the 150. So it's these much starker delineations of like, okay, I need to get to that 7 wins or whatever, because that's the cutoff for when I get my 2 tickets.
Yeah, and that's not easy to do.
Yeah,
to get to those 7 wins. Yeah, but I am glad that so it seems like it is hard for people who want to most play it, which is a shame because I think the changes that they made to the gameplay are really cool. And I think it's worth doing if you're somebody who does have some gold reserves and you're looking for something else to do if you're not necessarily enjoying the standard meta. Like, definitely give that another look. I think I will as well for when I don't want to risk my rank or just I'm not feeling that. Twist went away after February and was never heard from again. I don't know what else there is to say about that. Feels like
we need to have one of those like in memoriam montages, like from the the Emmys. These are the ones we lost this year. But
yeah, it just went missing. And at a certain point, you start wondering when do we declare them presumed dead.
Have you seen me on the side of a milk carton? Like, yeah.
They had that new tavern brawl, which I really liked with the dual class, and I was like, why isn't this a twist?
Yeah.
But anyway, let's see. Communication or lack thereof is the bullet point that you put here, Wicked. There was an interview with Nathan Lyons-Smith in February in Vice. And that's it, besides like dev notes in the patches. And then, of course, without Hat, there has been a change in how we're getting communications in the interim.
Yeah, like we specifically get some communication that sometimes can be disseminated, right? But it's much more of like there's a blockage between like the team communicating with the public generally. Now it's like, well, there might be some communication with content creators, and then perhaps the content creators are allowed to say some things or not. I don't know. Does that sound right?
Yeah, but there is some like This Week in Hearthstone on Reddit, which I don't look at as much because we do get and there's a Hearthstone Discord, which I've realized I should probably be in, but I have it because we mostly get those stuff through the creator program. But yeah, there's been less like instant communication through I do agree with like we should have like official channels. It just feels like a lot of time people don't know where to find this kind of stuff. And there's not a lot of like long form communication, especially from the game director.
Yeah, I think that's the piece that's missing, right? Like we've had, well, let's be honest, this has been a tough year, right? I mean, both in the game and out of the game. And if we're looking for escapism in the game, it's been tough here too, right? And I think that especially when we were going through the worst of it in the summer, and even as we're going into a rotation and wanting to understand what to expect, and I understand that this is risky whenever you're communicating some of these things out, you know, from a design team and talking about design direction. But having some idea of like what the intention is, what the design goals are, and what we should be expecting to happen, even if it doesn't hit exactly, I think would be really helpful. And it's been hard to know, because without that, what's hard to know is there a direction, right? Is there a general goal that we should be looking for throughout this year? Or is it everything set to set? And because it's felt like everything's been set to set, and then it's been, when those sets have been landing poorly, then everything's been kind of compounding on itself, right? And then especially as we've gotten into some of these big balance patches that have been making a lot of changes and feel like they're kind of wildly changing. Like we've had some balance patches that had 30, 40 cards in them, right? And it's hard to understand like where we're trying to get to when things are changing that much from what was originally designed and signed off on in design, right? And I think that having someone at least telling us like, this is what we're trying to get to, it may not be perfect, it may not be something we can get to all at once, but this is our goal and this is what we want to get to, would help give us a sense of confidence in where things are going, and we could kind of see how things are lining up. Because right now, again, it is feeling better with Across the Timeways, but we're kind of just having to take, you know, the word of the dev comments on its face and not really getting an idea of like what the overarching goals are supposed to be.
I have appreciated that we've had the dev comments at least.
Yeah.
I feel like that didn't used to always be a given. And we have had somewhat detailed dev comments for every balance patch, I think. It's become a thing that we can expect.
And like, you know, behind the scenes, you know, I think we had mentioned this before, but there are periods, right, where they say like, hey, here's something we're thinking about. Here's the window for people to give feedback on how they feel on these proposed changes. And sometimes that affects what ultimately becomes the changes, sometimes less so.
Within the creator program, you mean? Yeah.
Yes, within the creator program, exactly. So that was kind of what I was thinking of in terms of like, well, in the creator program, I feel like we've got, you know, decent communication. But in terms of like what is out there, writ large, it's not so great. And yeah, in terms of a general direction and response to the dissent of basically like the player base saying like, hey, we don't like quests being done this way.
Yeah. Yeah. Like even like a postmortem or something, right? Like, I mean, again, I keep going back. I've said this a few times, like Mark Rosewater is probably for Magic is more open than he probably ought to be, but he's been doing this a long time. So he has that kind of, you know, clout that he can do that. But he posts every year. He posts like, this was the year in Magic, and this is where we hit, and this is where we didn't. And these are the lessons that we're learning from it. Right. And this is how we're going to take those forwards in the next sets that we're designing. Even just something like that would be really helpful to understand that, like, what happened, right? Because like, again, not to dwell on it too much, but this was a really rough year in the game, rougher than I can remember, and I've been playing this game since 2015, right? And
yeah, I mean, like
this is the worst year since like Rostakon's Rumble, like that, the Witchwood Rostakon's Rumble that year. And
right. Yeah, I think that's the runner-up because
Yeah.
it was Witchwood, Boomsday, Rastakhan's.
right.
And I remember that being a fun year, right? Like, because I liked Gen and Baku.
Right.
It was
You
just,
were
you know,
you were not
Rastakhan's
the
hit.
typical
And,
player then. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've mostly enjoyed my time in Hearthstone this year, and also like if you're listening and you're like, I had a great time this year, like
Yeah.
I like you are not wrong for having a great time this year. I'm glad that you had a great time this year. And like everyone's experience is their experience. But yeah, it's been, I think it has not landed with people the way that I am sure that they wanted it to land with people. And new cards, I think, have not necessarily hit the meta in a way that I imagine they wanted them to hit the meta.
Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I am optimistic for rotation, but I would like to have more reasons to be optimistic than the game director is currently giving us. Is kind of what I'm saying, right? Is that I would like to have that kind of reassurance from someone who's leading that design team and telling us like, okay, we know what happened and this is what we're doing to fix it. And this is how things are going to be different. And, you know, maybe it doesn't have to be that detailed, but at least like some sort of acknowledgement that things didn't go well. And, you know, this is what we've learned from it, you know?
like, at least to say, you know, we didn't want it to be quite this much, but it is part of a greater plan, right? Like, I think
Right.
people at this point don't have faith that the first expansion of 2026 is going to be powerful, right?
Yeah.
Like, is going to be better than everything we've got. I don't think there's any other explanation for this past year if that's not the plan, but I can't confirm or deny that because we just have, like, you know, again, no sort of public communication. So like,
and even within the creator program, we're not hearing that. Like, it's not like it's not like we're sitting on information either, right? Like we don't know that for sure, even with you know some of our conversations.
When I say communication with the creator program, what has been great there has been like resources, right? Being able to get stuff, you know, well in advance, and so that we can plan, right, and say, okay, if this is going to drop on that day, then it doesn't actually make sense to us for us to record at this time, so let's record it this other time. You know, that's the kind of logistical things, and the being able to participate in balance discussions, right, and feedback. But yeah, it's not like we're getting, you know, crazy communication inputs that aren't available to other people.
Yeah, and
right. we don't know anything about the next set. We don't know anything about the overarching balance. And when there is balance discussions, it's not like, what should the grand design be for balance? It's like, should this card be 4 mana or 5 mana? Right. Like
yeah.
Well, it's like we give feedback in terms of how we feel, right? And then that is potentially incorporated or not, right?
Yeah. And just to be clear, like, I'm separating like the communication with the creator program, which is really just, you know, disseminating news and whatnot, from more like the communication from the design leadership. I think those are two different things, because I think that the resources in the creator program have been really good, especially for like some of the episodes that we've had to record off stream when there's been a balanced patch coming, and we were able to get the details of that ahead of time so that we could still release an episode on time and not have it completely invalidated by a balanced patch coming out on like the Friday after we record on a Thursday. That's been great, I think, but it's the communication from design leadership that I think has been really lacking throughout all of this year, that could have helped smooth some of this over. I mean, it might have made it worse, who knows? But at least, you know, not having anything has kind of led everyone to fill in the blanks with whatever they were feeling at the time, which is not always the most productive.
I mean, I think the agency patch notes might have
that was a year and a half ago. I mean,
yeah, but it still gets brought up.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that maybe making corporate be like, do we want to do these? So I don't know. Anyway, we have a note here. Esports has never been more back, though, as we talked about. That has been a real highlight of the year and looking like a real highlight for 2026. The production of the Masters Tours has been really greatly improved.
The Twitch extension
for qualifying.
You can mouse over the cards and they'll reveal themselves to you now. It's
and
really
we don't
cool.
have to worry about if there's going to be esports next year. We know there will be, which has been a market improvement over the last several years.
Now, if the AI bubble bursts and Microsoft wants to cut back, who can say about 2027? But, for now.
Yeah. I don't think if we could just quickly, lastly, if there's any favorite decks or archetypes of the past year that we want to highlight. So for me, I think I've already talked about Discover Hunter and Protoss Priest. The sort of fast priests in general. Menagerie Priest I liked pretty well. It wasn't a total highlight for me compared to some of the other ones. Let's see, I'm just looking through Deck Tracker right now.
Oh, yeah, that's
hard to do.
Way to go about it.
Yeah,
is it the way to do about it? Have you tried to find actual history in Deck Tracker? It is not easy, and HS Replay only goes back 2 months.
I'm just looking at decks in the Deck Manager.
Well,
you know what? I have a new computer.
Go in and delete stuff every now and again.
Oh yeah, I don't do that ever. So yeah, that's
yeah.
Yeah. I think when Fyrakk Death Knight was first becoming a thing, some 116 days ago or whatever. I did very well with that deck over its time. I had a 78% win rate and was rather fond of it.
Yeah.
I feel like I end up with a bunch of decks, some of which with just a handful of games, right? And that's kind of the stuff I often end up trying to deleting just to for visibility. And then I can see the things like, oh, this actually has 50 games on it or something. Clearly I played a bunch of that. I mean, I did decently with Discover Hunter, and I feel like I think it's been a hard year for me to play off meta.
Yeah, in general it has been, because there just hasn't been that much room, right? I mean, it's been challenging for me too, because there hasn't really been a good slow priest, right? The closest that I got was the quest priest, which was, I played a lot of it. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't good enough to climb with, right? And so, I mean, I've enjoyed a lot of the slower decks, but it's just been hard to find one that's not the problem is that it's just one, and then I get burned out on it, right? I played a lot of the Death Knight, and then I just got burned out on it because it wasn't what I wanted to be doing, and but I mean, there were some of those, the Toki Mage was fun for a little bit too. I didn't climb with it, but I was having fun with it. It was a stupid deck, but it was fun, and that's the kind of thing that I enjoy.
So I think my favorite deck of the past year was the Location Warlock.
Oh yeah.
Before it got nerfed, right? Where you had Elise, a couple of Horizon's Edge, Scrapbooking Student, Rot Yard Dryad to draw your expensive stuff, and it was just get Seaside Giants down fast, and actually I might not be looking at the right list. I don't think I am, but it had Corpse Skulls, it had Horizon's Edge, it had Ultra's Cavern at 3 mana, right? It had Seaside Giants that discounted quickly. It was very, very fun.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed that one, and I don't usually play either Warlock or Death Knight. But I had fun with that one. I had fun with the Imbue Priest once they updated it to be more my speed, and also more playable. And I had fun with never mind. I'm gonna mark that because my brain emptied itself.
You know what I forgot about was the Aviana Priest with Champions of Azeroth. That was the one that I liked a lot. That was probably the deck I enjoyed. I forgot about that because it was a while ago, where you would play Aviana and then you would get it. You would get everything to cost 1, and then you just start playing Champions of Azeroth and just start looking for Velen and Archmage Antonidas, and then play them both out and just start flinging fireballs at your opponent. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. It wasn't good, but it was fun.
It was playable enough for a minute.
Yes, exactly.
And it was enjoyable. Looking ahead, we expecting to hear about the mini set any day now. So we may be talking about that as soon as next week, depending on when they announce it. But it was either going to happen like right before or right after the holidays. It made more sense to happen right after. So we're coming up on about when we would expect it. And that, I think, hopefully it's a little bit more like this set where we have sort of generally good flexible cards, hopefully have a little more power, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a harbinger of what the next set will be per se. Yeah. And it's certainly, I wouldn't necessarily think it's going to completely overturn the meta, but I'd love to see at least one new thing out of it. I
can't imagine we're getting another StarCraft. Like, that's just not going to happen.
That's just very unlikely.
Yeah, like StarCraft was like a once in a lifetime type of thing that I don't think we're going to get again for a while.
I don't even think it'll be like Darkmoon Races, the first mini set, because I took a break after Witchwood until Darkmoon Races, which was the mini set for Darkmoon. And I was like, what is this? Because it had like mass hysteria, it had all kinds of stuff in it. That was really powerful. But it was a different time. And yeah, then we'll have rotation and we'll have to see what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, that's it for today, folks. We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at concede.com. You can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Follow us on Blue Sky at CoinConcede. Subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/@CoinConcede. And if you would like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Does that work yet?
No, I have to message him, figure out why the
from our website at shop.coinconcede.com, or there's a link in the show notes.
Well, Coin Concedes. I will Coin Concede to, first of all, Happy New Year to everyone. And I hope everyone had a great holiday. I had a very low-key holiday. We were going to go see my mother-in-law, and then we couldn't because my husband is the CFO for a nonprofit, and there was a lot of stuff that had to happen by December 31st. That unfortunately there had not been a chance to have happen. So we did not, but we still had a good low-key break. And I hope everyone else does as well. And I hope we have a better 2026. But also Coin Concede to the people in the Blueprints and Expedition 33 threads on the Discord. I've been posting incessantly about playing these two games in threads so as not to completely dominate other games general. And there's been people who've been going on the ride with me, and that's been very fun. So I appreciate everybody who's tagging along with me in those games. I am going to have to get my head in the game a little bit this weekend and next week in terms of like, oh yeah, school's starting again. I should be ready for that. But last night at stayed up till midnight for New Year's Eve. And then at like 12:20, I come in and my husband's like ready for bed. And I'm like, I'm trying to freak out about Monday. He's like, okay, not now. Let's freak out about Monday tomorrow. So also coin concede to my husband for helping me with my freak out about Monday this morning.
Well, I'm just going to coin concede to the both of you because, as much as we've had ups and downs this year, like doing the show with the both of you has been the highlight of my week, regardless of what state the game has been in. And I'm just really happy and privileged to get to spend this time with both of you doing the show. And I'm glad we get to keep doing it.
Same too.
Yeah, I will coin concede to, our listeners, our community. I think it's been through a lot of ups and downs, sticking with us this last year, and through lots and lots of transitions over the years. Some folks have been, listening to Coin Concede well before even I was on the show, right? And some former hosts will listen potentially, but yeah, just really appreciate having everyone. It's really inspiring as well how many folks don't even play Hearthstone anymore,
yeah,
but are still hanging out in the Discord or in chat for streams or just listening. It's great to have that kind of community and people that sort of share if not an interest anymore, depending, I don't know, just a place in the world.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
On that note, that's going to do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm, and here's to a good 2026. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now. I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend. You win this time. I choose